WNYT, Albany. This is News Channel 13 Special Edition.
Orenthal James Simpson not guilty of the crime of murder in violation of Penal Code Section 187A, a felony upon Nicole Brown Simpson, a human being, as charged in count 1 of the information.
The verdict is in, and the verdict is not guilty on all counts. Good evening. Welcome to a special edition of News Channel 13. I'm Ed Day.
I'm Chris Kapasnashi. OJ Simpson is back at his home on Rockingham tonight, what has become perhaps the most famous estate in the world. OJ Simpson is a free man, isolated perhaps from the highly emotional reaction that has been coming in all day to the verdict. As is legally required, the jurors were asked, "Is this your verdict?" And all 12 answered yes.
We have extended coverage coming up for you, including a group of local lawyers, judges, prosecutors. We'll also talk to law school graduates as they watch the verdict come in today. But first, we'll take you to Los Angeles for a report on what is happening currently in that city.
Let's go live now to John Gibson in Los Angeles.
The O.J. Simpson verdict is now history, and the district attorney says there will not be another trial of anybody for the murders of Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman. When it was over, son Jason Simpson read a statement from O.J. Simpson, who said that he would now devote the rest of his days to find the real killers of Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman. O.J. Simpson arriving home at Rockingham a free man for the first time in 15 and a half months, hugged by A.C. Cowlings, his longtime friend, and the man who drove Simpson on his famous slow-speed chase. The fact that O.J. Simpson is now free choked Fred Goldman with bitter emotion.
This prosecution team didn't lose today. I deeply believe that this country lost today. Justice was not served.
The verdict itself came with stunning swiftness and finality.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Orenthal James Simpson, not guilty of the crime of murder.
O.J. Simpson and Johnny Cochran embraced in relief. Simpson mouthed the words, "Thank you," to the jury. Fred Goldman and his daughter Kim embraced in tears. Later, the prosecutors met the media, and while he was trying to explain that he accepted the verdict, Chris Darden broke down and couldn't go on.
But I'm not bitter, and I'm not angry. But I'd also like to thank the lawyers on our prosecution team. I am honored to have
At the home of juror number 1, the forewoman, the juror's daughter said she was relieved it was over.
We're just very happy that this has finally come to a conclusion.
How did you make the decision so fast?
Well, we've been there 9 months. You know, don't take another 9 months.
As O.J. Simpson was greeting friends and family back at home, his defense team was meeting the media. Johnny Cochran said it was a just and fair verdict, and he insisted it was not a race-based case.
It was introduced by this witness, Furman. This stuff about playing a race card is preposterous.
A statement from my father. I'm relieved that this part of the incredible nightmare that occurred on June 12, 1994 is over. My first obligation is to my young children who will be raised the way that Nicole and I had always planned. My second obligation. Now, O.J. Simpson has been reunited with all of his family back at his Rockingham estate where he is a free man. All of his family except for Sidney and Justin. The terms of the custody agreement with the Brown family, his in-laws, was that the children would be returned to his custody when and if he was released from incarceration. He says he wants to be reunited as soon as possible. John Gibson, NBC News, Los Angeles. Now back to you.
Thank you, John. We are back ready to sample local reaction to the jury's verdict.
Here's a brief outline of what we have planned over the next 90 minutes. We were in downtown Albany and at a mall in Saratoga County when the verdict was read, and we found very different reactions.
We have also assembled a panel of local legal experts who will join us here in studio to dissect the verdict.
And we will look at the future of DNA evidence. 2 well-known forensic scientists who worked for the defense team spoke with our health reporter, Benita Zahn. The not guilty verdict brought cheering and dancing in the streets of Albany's Arbor Hill section. News Channel 13's Monica Mahaffey joins us now live. Monica?
Chris, people I've talked with here are calling the not guilty verdict a victory for the black man. Only a very few people criticize the jury's decision.
OJ not guilty! Yes! The verdict is in! Yes! Gotta go!
Almost everyone in Albany's predominantly black Arbor Hill community is celebrating the jury verdict. Daycare workers nervously watch the decision at the Arbor Hill Community Center.
OJ Simpson not guilty of the crime of murder.
I know it! Told you.
They held the trial too long. Okay, I think if the trial went for at least a month or two, then I think it probably would have been different.
So if OJ didn't do it, who did?
Probably, I don't know, maybe it was set up. Somebody else did it. He probably knew something about it, but he had nothing to do with it.
Before the verdict was read, the streets of Arbor Hill were eerily quiet. But afterward,
We love you, OJ! Juice is loose!
Out there dancing now on First Street. When you come down this part, they out there dancing like, I don't know, like they had money on it or something. Everybody's basically happy.
Almost everybody.
This is a gross miscarriage of justice. I totally can't believe that they let this man go. And I feel that probably the only reason why is because of the bumbling idiots at the LAPD.
The only other negative comment that I heard today was from a man who said money can buy you anything. Chris?
Monica, how emotionally invested were the people you talked to in this case? Were they concerned, for example, if the verdict had been guilty, that there could be trouble in Arbor Hill?
Absolutely, Chris. These people are incredibly in this neighborhood and have said to me that they are incredibly involved in this emotionally. They feel like OJ is a relative of theirs, some said. And one woman told me that had there been a guilty verdict, then there would have been riots in LA. Not necessarily in Albany, but definitely in LA.
Thanks very much, Monica. Monica in Arbor Hill. Ed?
Thank you, Chris. With me is a legal panel you will see on several occasions through the 90-minute newscast that we're producing today. We have prosecutor Sal Greenberg, the Albany County District Attorney. Thank you for coming, Sal.
Thank you for having me.
Judge, retired judge of Rensselaer County Court, M. Andrew Dwyer, and defense attorney, one of the most prominent certainly in the area, E. Stuart Jones. Gentlemen, welcome. Each one of you in recent days has told me that you thought the evidence showed O.J. Simpson was guilty, that he committed this crime. So from your standpoint, this is a wrong verdict. Why did it happen? Let me start with Stu.
It happened because of the jury that was selected at the very beginning of this case, because of the defendant, and because it was tried in Los Angeles County. This outcome, I think, was foreordained when this jury was sworn. And the prosecution was swimming uphill from the very beginning, dealing with a black hero, with a predominantly black jury in a county that doesn't seem to be able to convict a celebrity
defendant. So you think another
defendant.
jury might have convicted O.J. Simpson?
Not in Los Angeles County, but in another locale in this country, I think there would have been a different result. I think there are very few areas in this country where Simpson, in the face of the overwhelming proof of his guilt, could have been acquitted. Los Angeles is certainly one of them, and that is no surprise to me, and I certainly think no surprise to most people.
Judge, why do you think the jury decided something that you do not agree with?
Well, I remember the same state of shock that ran through the country after the Rodney King case. People thought that would be a conviction too, and it wasn't. And I think that...
So you think there was some intimidation of the jury because it was in Los Angeles, volatile Los Angeles?
No, but I do think, as Mr. Jones has pointed out, that there was a certain amount of polarization out there. This is an issue which we have to face in this country.
Sal, was this lost the minute the jury was chosen?
I think it may have been. Basically, frankly, I was surprised with the verdict of not guilty. I figured that he would not be convicted, but there'd be a hung jury.
One of the things two of you have told me, and we'll try all three, is that this case would have been very different in New York. For openers, the district attorney and the judge told me, no way that search of Rockingham gets in New York, no way they go over the wall, find the glove, and get it admitted. Why is that, Judge?
Well, that would have come at the time that they brought on a hearing with reference to exclusionary rules.
They're that different in New York?
It's a lot different in New York. In New York, you have to have a search warrant for most searches unless something is in plain sight or unless you have exigent circumstances.
Sal, do you agree you could not have gotten the glove, for example?
I would say that that would have been suppressed as physical evidence. Frankly, our highest court interprets the law according to the Constitution, state of New York.
So, Stu, what these guys are telling me is, while it may be true that juries in LA are different, the law in New York is different. It would have been very hard to get a conviction in this state just to get the evidence in.
The glove is gone. The glove is a small piece of the overall evidence picture against Simpson here. There was so much other evidence that condemned him to a verdict of guilty that in upstate New York, first of all, the trial would have taken about a tenth of the time, and secondly, the jury would have been back with a guilty verdict.
You have the old means, motive, and opportunity in this case. That was the important thing about the question that jury asked about the chauffeur, that time element in there. Of course, that's what Cochran was referring to.
Guys, thank you for now. We'll be back, though. Want to talk to you about DNA evidence, television in the courtroom, all sorts of aspects of this case. Thanks for now, though. Chris.
Thank you, Ed. So much of the prosecution case did revolve around blood evidence found at the murder scene and at OJ's home. If the testing is as good as proponents make it out to be, then what happened? And what happens in future cases? Well, Benita Zahn has spent the day looking into that. Benita?
Chris, that whole area of blood evidence and all the evidence that's just too tiny for most of us to see fits into the arena called forensics. In that is DNA testing, a kind of fingerprint made by our blood. Of all the evidence examined in the OJ courtroom, the DNA evidence was the most intricate for a jury to understand. It's the most cutting edge. To help sort it out, the defense hired Albany pathologists Dr. Michael Bodden and Dr. Barbara Wolf. As they explain it, their field of forensics doesn't tell you who committed a crime. It helps tell you what happened. But to do that well, blood evidence has to be very carefully collected. And they say that did not always happen in the OJ case.
I think that the evidence was not handled to the standards in some instances that have to be applied in 1995. The evidence was handled in the way evidence was handled in the 1970s.
Bodden and Wolf say investigators have to be taught to do a better job to preserve that one drop of blood, of semen, that one strand of hair. While they think mistakes were made in the field, they don't think the jury was poorly educated in the courtroom about DNA, and they don't think this trial hurts further use of DNA evidence.
And so, no, I don't think we're going to see less of a demand for DNA testing. If anything, I think we'll see more of an emphasis on it.
Bodden and Wolf say they were surprised by the verdict, but they say a guilty verdict would have produced the same surprise.
Is there a bottom line, Benita, of what both of them think comes out of this case?
In fact, there is, Chris. They think that there is now an awareness of forensics, a greater awareness in the community. They also think that there is an awareness that there's a need for improvements in the investigation at a death scene, so that some of the mishandling of evidence that happened in the OJ case won't happen again. New York State, in fact, is building a $22 million forensics unit out at the State Office campus. That's great on one hand. On the other hand, money has to be spent to educate the investigators to make sure that everything is meticulously collected, and that, in fact, was apparently where some of the problems arose.
Thanks, Benita. Elaine Houston is standing by at the Wilton Mall in Saratoga County. Hi, Elaine.
Hi, Chris. 10 minutes before the verdict was read, there were less than 6 people standing here. 10 minutes later, there were 60. And I tell you, you could see the anxiety, you could feel the suspense. And once that verdict was read, reaction here in the North Country was mixed.
Good morning again, ladies and gentlemen.
In the electronics department of the Sears store in Wilton Mall, all the TVs were on and all eyes were on Judge Lance Ito. For some, the suspense was almost painful, but once the verdict was read, reaction came swiftly.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Orenthal James Simpson, not guilty of the crime of murder in violation of Penal Code Section 187A, a felony upon Nicole Brown Simpson, a human being, as charged in count 1 of the information.
And I think he's guilty.
I don't think he did it. I think it was all a loophole by trial judges. They made it a whole lot more than what it should have been. I think the judge didn't do what he should have done in the beginning of it and lost control, and that's what took us longer. I really don't think the man killed her. I don't think he's capable of that kind of thing.
I thought they made the wrong decision.
Justice was not served here.
I don't believe so.
For some, the verdict was based purely on emotion, not the facts.
I think if it were somebody of lesser means, like, say, myself, I'd already been in jail with the key thrown away.
Juanita Curry has worked in the children's department at Sears for 2 years and says you only get a crowd like this during bad weather.
Only in a snowstorm. Only in a snowstorm. No, never like this, no.
And Chris, no snowstorm, but people are still here, people standing all around me. You know, I talked to the salespeople who said that a lot of people still coming up, people still talking about it, what they would have done, what should have happened. Not a lot of televisions being sold here, but a lot of conversation. Chris.
Thank you. Elaine Houston reporting from the Wilton Mall. Ed?
Thank you, Chris. I'm here with Alice Green, who runs the Center for Law and Justice in Albany. 10-year anniversary you've just celebrated. Congratulations,
Yes, thank
Alice.
you.
I'm really struck by the difference in reaction to this verdict from the Wilton Mall to Arbor Hill. Why is the reaction so different?
Well, I think African Americans understand the injustice in the criminal justice system. They feel bias every day, not only in the criminal justice system, but through other parts of their lives. And for them, I think it was sort of a victory, and OJ was just a vehicle.
Did you watch Johnny Cochran's summation?
I saw some of it, yes.
What did you think of that? What did you think of him comparing Furman to Hitler?
Well, certainly I agreed with the way he presented that argument. I don't know if I would make the exact comparison,
right,
but certainly I think the racism that is a part of the system is just as destructive and terrible as the killing of people.
Do you think it should have been mentioned in the trial then as prominently as it was?
Certainly so.
It should have been.
I think it certainly raised some concerns about Furman and the role that he played in the investigation. Again, I think that it's very easy for certain groups, particularly African Americans and Latinos, to understand how people like Furman play a very important role in policing and throughout the criminal justice system.
Interesting. Thank you, Alice Green, for joining us today. Chris.
Our political commentator, Dr. Alan Shart, has been watching the developments of this case throughout. And let's take a look at the big picture, Alan. Is race the central issue coming out of this trial?
Without question. This country is deeply racially divided, has been for a long time. Johnny Cochran, I'm sure, feeling that he had to do what he had to do to get his client off, played the race card. I didn't like it. He did it. I saw it coming. I knew what was going to happen, and it happened.
He didn't call it the race card. He called it the credibility card. Mark Furman was not his witness. He did not fabricate those tapes.
No. There's no question that there are policemen in this country, in this state, who fabricate evidence.
More than we would want to admit?
I think there are. We've sent several to jail in this state already, state policemen, the best we have. I don't think that means all policemen are by any means, but I think that the good ones often know who the bad ones are, and I think that that's a real failure when they don't come forward and talk about that. I think we're going to have to address this stuff about police misconduct as one of the things coming out of here. I also think we're going to have to rethink about justice for sale, because I think a lot of people now believe that there's a great deal that you can do with money that you can't do if you don't have the money. But no, I really believe that it came down to a matter of race, that the case was lost after the voir dire when they picked the jurors.
Will it make a difference, this case? Will it have an impact?
I think it will. I think, for example, cameras in the courtroom are going to be looked at very seriously in a much different way than we have seen before. I think that we're going to have to take a look at the way in which people hire lawyers and the way we conduct our trials.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Alan Shart.